You made a mask out of a sweat sock, and I thought, what a horror that is. Oh, hey, horror movies have a lot of great masks in them.
They do.
And so that's where we went. That's where this came from.
They always say the first step is admitting the problem. So we're on the right track.
Yeah.
Honestly, that might have been the last Friday the 13th movie that I saw in the theater. Welcome to it. It's Fright Club Live on Facebook Live. She's Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And we're from madwolf.com. And another timely topic, we're talking about horrific masks, as I got to get in the shot here. I got to quit getting out of the shot. So everybody talking about masks, obviously. I won't bore you with how I made. This is mine. I made this out of a footy sock. I watched a video on how to do it, and you put a paper towel in there. And I wore this to the grocery store today, and it worked fine. So
next he's going to make one out of a pair of underpants.
We appreciate you hanging with us. And, well, actually, this is the second time now that we've done this on Facebook Live. And I think the first time we had a great group and some great questions, which we actually look forward to tonight as well. So thanks for coming back. We had fun last time.
We did. And we wanted to thank a bunch of the people who joined us. And we got to talk to or hear from a lot of people that we haven't gotten to talk to for a long time. Tom and Tammy.
Yeah.
Lovely to have them on board. And then also a lot of people who aren't usually with us on Facebook. They're usually with us on Twitter, who joined us last time. And we threw out this idea that maybe we'd ask somebody else to help us figure out what our next podcast topic was going to be. And we had some great thoughts, and we thought Brandon won because he had a great idea for grocery store horror. But as it turns out, I don't ever really let anybody else do that. So
it's always, they always say the first step is admitting the problem. So we're on the right track.
Yep.
That's good.
That's right. I also wanted to say hi. Our beloved John Tice joined us last time. He was a co-host in one of our very, very first episodes back when we were still so rough.
Yeah. That was a good episode, though. That was talking about our favorite gay horror films.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was a good one because I think he's very funny.
He's incredibly funny.
Was that the first time he called me the white Billy D. Williams?
Maybe. It might have been.
That's a landmark day in my life. No Colt 45 tonight, though. Just water.
No.
So even though we're on Facebook Live, we are using the microphones because I am a snob about audio.
That's right.
So
I mean, not that's right like I'd forgotten, but that's right. I forgot we hadn't mentioned it yet. You're probably going like, why in the hell do they have microphones up? Are they amplifying? We're not.
So we'll have fun with this tonight, and then I'll do the edited podcast version to be live on Monday. Hey, Cicely, welcome.
Hey. Jason, Tom, Tammy, good to have you guys back again.
Thank you so much.
Michael, Anthony, Carol, all of the gang.
Yay, the Fright Clubbers.
The Fright Clubbers are here. We apologize for that quick hopscotch from one platform to another, but thanks for joining.
I do like what you said. It's nice to have people join in that are out of state.
Yeah.
I mean, we do miss going to the Gateway Film Center and doing it live. Miss all of you that get to join us here in town, but we have made friends with a lot of people outside of Ohio that haven't made the road trip yet into Fright Club Live. So it's always nice to have them as well. So it's sort of a double-edged sword, but we certainly look forward to the day when the theaters are back open and we're back doing it live. But until then, here we are.
Yeah.
We're talking about horrific masks. So you basically kicked Brandon to the curb. We've established that. And his idea. So masks, that just came about because it's so timely right now?
Yeah, I guess that's what we were kind of doing the last time. We were kicking around some ideas. Last time it was confinement. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Some ideas that kind of seemed to fit really well with this. And then you made a mask out of a sweat sock. And I thought, what a horror that is. Oh, hey, horror movies have a lot of great masks in them.
Do.
And so that's where we went. That's where this came from.
They really do.
So that's where we're going to go.
Fuzzy math. So that is our top 6, top 5. Nothing you want to talk about beforehand about things that didn't make the cut? Well, actually, I see on your notes here on the other screen that there's going to be a lot of different movies to mention underneath each one that did make the cut. So that's how we're going to talk about it?
That's how we're going to cover like 300 movies.
All right. A lot of masks to cover tonight. So let's start at number 6, since it is fuzzy. A Puritan police sergeant is sent to a Scottish island village. That's the first of my many accents this evening. In search of a missing girl who the townsfolk claim never existed. Stranger still are the pagan rites that take place there. From 1973, the classic The Wicker Man.
I am here to investigate the disappearance of a young girl. I suspect murder.
Sergeant, I've already told...
In the name of God, woman, what kind of mother are you? That can stand by and see your own child slaughtered.
Where is Rowan Morrison?
If Rowan Morrison existed, we would know. You are the fool, Mr. Howard.
Where is Rowan Morrison?
Oh, my God!
Say it.
Where is Rowan Morrison? You got the roll.
Oh, yeah.
Edward Woodward, of
Yeah.
course, as the constable in that classic movie.
That's right. And Christopher Lee with the puffy hair.
Oh.
Puffy hair Christopher Lee.
He cuts such an impressive figure anyway, because he's like 7'2".
Yeah, he was so tall.
But the
and he just
hair-
that saucy baritone. Oh,
and he's
my
out
God.
there on the, in the cliffs, and it's so windy, just blowing his hair everywhere. It's really majestic. And there's so many masks in this video, and I think if you've listened to this podcast quite often, you know that I love a person in a horse face mask.
You do. He does. He
I
really,
think
really
it's
does.
just hilarious in a horse face mask. But these masks,
They're less funny.
they're less funny.
Yeah, they're super scary.
They're scary.
If not the first, one of the first movies, horror films, that really took advantage of that scary idea of the public anonymity when a crowd of people has a mask on, that you can just get away with more. And of course, it's their harvest festival. And so it's their, sort of pagan ritual. And there's that element of kind of the grotesque that goes along with it, this festival sort of a situation. But, and there's something just profoundly creepy, about this crowd of people in this mask. And of course, they dupe the police officer into participating as the fool.
Yeah. And he's so righteous
my God,
throughout
it's
the whole
great.
thing, because they parallel not only his mission to find Rowan Morrison, but his firm Christian beliefs.
Yeah.
He's so steadfast in his mission, both missions, and they are just playing him. You're right; they're playing him for a fool from the get-go, from the time he gets there on the island.
Well, even before. I mean, that's how they lure him there.
True.
And Christopher Lee is the counterpart to that. He's so, everything he says is so sort of gloriously heretical. He's just, I mean, everything is just this jolly joke to him. It's a great movie, but it made the list because of the masks, and also because I wanted to make sure that we focused at least a little bit of the podcast on the different films that take advantage of that kind of crowded, not just one person wearing one mask, which is mainly what we'll talk about, are the real iconic masks.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting that this is a very bloodless horror movie, which was the aim set out by director Robin Hardy. He wanted to make a horror movie that wasn't gory at all, and it just worked on a totally different level. And of course, the real horror doesn't kick in until the end.
No.
Up until then, it really is just a mystery thriller, I suppose. But then it works on a totally different level, especially when you see Sergeant Howie's reaction at the very end there. And that was a very authentic reaction, because Edward Woodward resisted all invitations to see the set, to see the actual Wicker Man. Very smart. Yeah. Until the very, very end. And then when they finally put him in, I think he said up until his death, he said that in his decades of acting, that was the most frightened he had ever been, because it was really on fire, and fire is hot. And so his reaction was so authentic, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Just to get his reaction, and once you see that thing.
Right. Now, and we're pointing out, I'm surprised you haven't yet. We're talking about the 1973 Wicker Man. We're not including the abysmal The Bees. We're not talking about Nicolas Cage Wicker Man.
No.
Even though there are some masks in that one, but we're just going to disregard that ever happened. But The Purge, right? Strangers. That was a great use of
that.
Masks.
Was just on
and
the other
next.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's some good masks in there. We were just flipping channels the other night, and The Strangers was on, and I just came to a part in it when he was in the house standing behind Liv Tyler in that mask. That is a creepy mask.
It is. It's a creepy mask. That's the best shot in the whole movie, where she's in the kitchen. She's a little nervous, well, way in the background. Yeah, that is. It's a great movie. It's a great shot. It's super, super creepy. And they do a nice job with the masks. So not just that one, which is kind of the sackhead. We'll talk about the sackhead later.
Yeah.
But then they've got the Cupid doll mask.
And since I've done the Rowan Morrison, you got to do your Tamara voice.
Tamara home.
Knock, knock, knock. Yeah, that is really effective and extremely creepy for those home invasion type movies. Because speaking of playing with people, they just play with that couple all night long.
They do.
They're in the house. They're out of the house. We know it.
Yeah.
But they don't know it.
They should know it.
It's good stuff. Yeah, they should.
They're kind of stupid. They are kind of stupid. They just are.
I'd kind of forgotten about You're Next. That's one that we always talk about. We don't quite have as much love for You're Next as I see a lot of people give it.
Right.
It's solid.
It is.
But I think that's one we might need to reconsider.
You know, it's funny you say that because we did rewatch it when we did sort of a Women Kick Ass podcast a couple of years ago. We rewatched it for that, and it made the list because it certainly does fit that category. But for me, the comic elements of it don't sit as well. They take away for me a little bit from the movie, although it's a really well made film.
And getting back to the Wicker Man and the ending, I find it funny that apparently when they turned in the final product, the advertising execs that were in charge of marketing this thing hated the ending. They wanted it reshot to come up with a sudden rainstorm that extinguished the flame. I know, isn't that idiotic?
Yes.
That would have just ruined it. Just absolutely ruined it. So thankfully, they refused and made it a classic and made it number 6 on our Masks in Horror from 1973. The original Wicker Man. We're not even going to acknowledge that other one. Going up to number 5, and I'm surprised this one is as low as it is, knowing Hope's affection for this movie. 2 siblings and 3 of their friends en route to visit their grandfather's grave in Texas, hint, hint, end up falling victim to a family of cannibalistic psychopaths from 1974. Leatherface, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
This is the movie that is just as real, just as close, just as terrifying as being there. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. After you stop screaming, you'll start talking about it.
They should go grab him.
Grab who? Oh. Hang on where she's getting him. Funko sighting.
Here he is. I had this on when I had a corporate desk for a minute. I had this on my desk, and the person with the next table over asked me, was it like an avocado man? And she thought he had like an avocado for a head. I said, no, that's someone else's human flesh he's wearing as a mask.
Well, this is the same job where she had a plush Cartman from South Park, and her one boss looked at it and goes, is that Ziggy?
Actually, it's a different job. It's the one where I had that big zombie sitting up in the...
Oh, I thought it was the same job.
No.
The point is, he said, is that Ziggy?
George's impressions. So anyway, Leatherface. It's a very cool, super creepy mask, obviously, made out of somebody else's face. And, it gives them the opportunity to sort of, just change per mood. What do I feel like today? Do I feel like Karen's face? Do I feel like Paul's face? It's very exciting. I love, as you know, I love everything about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think Leatherface is just such a spectacular character. And in the first movie, I kind of prefer the way his character is presented in the first movie. I like Gunnar Hansen. I like the mask. In later ones, he wears sometimes a lot of makeup and he sticks his tongue out a lot. Sometimes he uses his teeth. You can go over the top. When you already are starting off with he's wearing somebody else's face, I think less is more. But I love that character. And then one of my favorite, you guys might know this, I love The Silence of the Lambs. What? And one of my favorite moments in The Silence of the Lambs is when Hannibal Lecter wears somebody else's face. Because it's like the marriage of my 2 favorite movies. So he's in here too. Same idea, somebody else's face mask. That's nice. But he gets extra bonus points because then he also has that sort of, that half a face mask that I might bite you while you wheel me out on a gurney mask. So and I got to figure out a way to get Silence of the Lambs into every podcast.
And he has that great sequence in the ambulance where he peels it off.
Yeah.
Remember the shock of that the first time?
Yes.
Holy moly.
I think we clapped. One of us clapped.
Well, going back to the masks in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there are actually 3 variations, which is sort of how Gunnar Hansen and Tobe Hooper worked out to flesh out. See what I did there? His Gunnar Hansen's performance by these masks. They had the old lady mask, of course, and then when dolled up a little bit, you had the pretty woman mask.
Yeah.
And none of those were really involved in actually the killing. It was more of the domestic, when he was living the domestic life. And they had an entirely different mask to do the killing or the hanging on a hook.
Yeah. Yeah, the one where he's chasing her down the street at the end,
right? Which
is the one that you can see. It's ugly. I'm not like the others are pretty, but it's got all these sewing like slash marks through it.
Yeah.
The one with the dark curls and the lipstick when he's being domestic.
I know, and that's
very sweet.
As we've mentioned before, when we've talked about this movie, it's in broad daylight.
Yeah.
And which is so an antithesis of what is normally scary. When you throw those contrasting things, these horrific masks and these chainsaws, even though there's not a lot of blood in this either, they're able to just make it so frightening with those masks. And then, of course, I've talked about that the slamming door is the one that always got it for me. But it's one of the ways that they were able to take this movie and take this setting, even in broad daylight and on a shoestring budget, and make it so terrifying.
Yeah, I chalk it up to the family dynamic, like that dinner scene and the way the family all behaves with each other, sort of, ripping on each other and making fun of each other. And then there's this poor woman screaming. You can see her eye, like veins pop in her eyeballs. So you got to be thinking like, the fuck, man? What is wrong with them? But that's the thing, right? I mean, they're going to eat you. There's got to be something wrong with them.
Yeah, there's a lot wrong.
There's a lot wrong.
Speaking of pretty woman, Letitia says, "Hope you look gorgeous."
Thank you, Letitia.
We haven't heard from her in a while.
No.
Welcome back. Glad you're here. Appreciate that. Monty says hi, and Alexander. Oh, and Melissa Dina.
Hi, everybody. We miss you.
We do.
We do. We miss you.
It's fun to be back together. And again, thanks for putting up with our little glitch there, but we're back at it as we're... Is that all about Texas Chainsaw Massacre? I mean, I know you could go on for a while, but...
That's all I was going to say.
Okay, because we're actually whittling it down to just the masks this time, really. And that is for sure an iconic one from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And that's number 5, and that takes us up to number 4 on our horrific masks. A classic, a surgeon causes an accident which leaves his daughter disfigured and goes to extremes to give her a new face. We just did this at the last one before we took the little quarantine at Gateway. This is from 1960, Christiane and her mask in Eyes Without a Face.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Because there's something so lovely about it. There's something so beautiful about the way she looks, and at the same time she's so incredibly creepy looking. And in the way that in a lot of other films the mask is really like a drugstore sort of Halloween mask, and that kind of garish, grotesque idea of that, this one is so clearly made to fit her face perfectly.
Yes.
And it makes her look so angelic. And also I'm always slain by how the mouth fits around her lips, so you can see her lips move, but it's really the mask that you see. It's astonishing, the work that went into that mask.
That's one of the interesting things, because we did just see it recently on the big screen.
Yeah.
And you definitely get the sense of how iconic, how influential it was.
Yes.
But let's be honest, you also get to see there's some bumps in the road, especially with the technical aspects. And one of the interesting things about the mask is because when she's not wearing it, if you notice, it is very thick and heavy, and it would seem to cover the whole face. But then the one she has on is not so heavy, and it's very thin, close fitting, and it seamlessly covers her jawline and the underside of her chin and makes that impression that you're talking about. So probably they had to do that technically for the prosthetics, I guess, they were working with at the time. But if you really want to pick some technical nits on that movie, you can. But it's best to just go with the flow, because it really sets such a mood about the mask, and when she does have it on and when she doesn't, and they're just showing the back of her head.
I think the mask really... it just really complements this sort of otherworldly performance that Edith Cobb gives in that movie, and she's so delicate and ghostly. She just seems like, even though she's alive, she seems like she's haunting this house. and later The Woods. And I just think that the mask is such a perfect complement to that performance, and in a very different way. But I didn't want to forget about Mrs. Tredoni from Alice, Sweet Alice. So I guess she's just in here because she's the other female on this list. But it was the first time, because I saw it one time on TV when I was a little kid, and it was the first time I saw a scary movie where they use like a bad Halloween mask that we used to wear when we were little kids, right? That were just horrible and you could barely see out the eyes, and then they have the big elastic band around the back. It scared the shit out of me. It was easy, that and the fact that the whole thing takes place like during confirmation, or First Communion. So it was like the whole first act is set inside a Catholic church, which is basically where I spent my childhood. So that was extra creepy to me as well. Like all this was happening to the second grade girl in a church, and I was probably a second grade girl in a church. Like, this is a little too close to home. But I still think that that there are a lot of somewhat iconic images in that movie. And honestly, I also think that it's not remembered as well as it ought to be.
I also love what they do with the animals.
Yes.
Especially toward the end with the dog. And then the classic shot when she's leaving the house with the dove.
Yeah.
But when she lets all the dogs, I'm not going to say who let the dogs out. I'm not. But when she does let the dogs out, I love the different thematic contrast with that as well, because she has been pretty much a prisoner in the house there for a while. I know. Have you noticed? I'm surprised it took this long for Monty and Dzac to pretty much hijack this and go off on their own, feuding and a fussing like they do.
Well, it's exciting that means that because some faction within there wouldn't get on Facebook last time. Monty was here.
Oh, that's right.
Katie was here. I think Dzac was opposed to it.
No,
And
he said only Fright Club could make him break his Facebook ban, so thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you. And Brandon, George agrees. He was also really shocked that Texas Chainsaw Massacre was down as far as it was.
Yeah. And I saw Melissa Dina threw a vote in for Eyes Wide Shut, because there are plenty of masks in there.
There are, yes. It would be a really good one to include with Wicker Man, because the whole set of and also it's kind of a pagan ritual. And yeah, I never think of Eyes Wide Shut as a horror movie, but it is scary. It's creepy.
Yeah, it's freaky.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there are an awful lot of masks.
Yes.
Silencio.
That's a different movie.
That is a movie. What is the word they used to get in? Silencio was from the David Lynch Mulholland Drive.
Yeah.
What is the word? I know someone's going to get it on the comments. What's the word, the password to get into the big party, the big orgy in Eyes Wide Shut? I can't think of it. Someone's going to give it to me.
Yes.
All right, so we'll move up to number 3, yes?
Number 3.
I know you have a good prop for us.
I do.
You have a good prop ready. This is 15 years after murdering his sister on Halloween night in 1963, Michael Myers escapes. It's the original 1978 Halloween.
I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
So this is obviously, Shatner. We should thank Shatner for this. Also, it's just, I think this is when the sort of serial killer, the slasher, the boogeyman, when from here forward, he always had to have a mask on. And it was, first of all, it was such a great mask because it was Shatner. I mean, that's hysterical. And also the fact that it's too big for him, and you've got this big neck sticking out the bottom. So you can't miss that he's wearing a mask, which makes it that much creepier. You're just looking at him, the whole time like, of course, it's Halloween, so maybe he thinks he can get away with it. But he cut such an incredibly creepy image with this, whited out Shatner face on. But like I said, I mean, then after that happened, everybody had to have, because it was the 80s were coming. There's going to be slashers, and the slasher, the boogeyman, and those all had to have a mask on. But I also want to sidetrack to Halloween 3. Where we don't have Michael Myers, but we do have nothing but masks. Really cool masks, too. I don't share the Halloween 3 love that a lot of people have. I don't. He hates it.
Don't care for it.
He doesn't care for the Halloween 3.
Sorry.
I do like it. I think it's fun. But the masks are undeniably awesome. And also that plot, the idea of what they're going to do is just kill all the children who wear them. It's an inspired idea. So Halloween is on here twice, really.
Yeah, well, let's go back to the Shatner mask. I guess depending on what story you believe, they had a couple of different choices before they settled on the Shatner. They had worked up a sort of a clown mask with frizzy hair, and they put actually some money into this mask, and then they also had a knockoff Richard Nixon mask, which would have been interesting. But the cheapest one, I think they said they got it for like $1. The Shatner, the Captain Kirk mask, and they made the eye openings bigger, and they took the eyebrows off and painted it white, and then kind of pressed the hair down a little bit to make it a little less like Shatner than it was.
Oh, yeah.
And then once they just tried it, they said, "Oh yeah, that's it. That's the creepiest one."
Yeah.
And I'm so glad they didn't go. They were thinking about the clown mask because of the flashback to what he was wearing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that would have made sense, but I think they went with a much better choice to be just because it's so lifeless.
Yeah.
It's just so totally lifeless, and you don't really look at it and think, "Oh, that's Shatner."
Right.
You heard it later.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you definitely don't. And the mask itself changes from one episode to the next. It's not entirely the same, but as Corey points out, the one that they used in the one from 2 years ago was super cool.
Yeah, I said originally an Emmett Kelly mask. Yeah, Corey points out that is exactly right. And I think it was Seth who came in with the password. It was Fidelio.
Oh.
Yeah. So Seth, thank you for that. But back to Halloween.
Don't do it. It's a trick. It's a trap.
Yeah, it is. So they had the choice of the Emmett Kelly mask or the Nixon, and they went with the Shatner mask, and it has become just incredibly iconic, along with another one that we'll probably talk about here very soon. It's got to be up there with the all-time. I mean, when you can just grab those masks in any Halloween store every year.
Yeah. Yes. And like I said, though, and then for slashers, then it was sort of a necessity that they have a mask on and they have to do something different with the mask every time. And then as the slashers kind of faded into the past, then retro films, and then they all had to have them. And so, you've got like the Ghostface Killer from Scream because it's a movie about slasher movies, and so it's got to have a villain and that was a great idea, right? That was a great idea. And then also Leslie Vernon behind the mask,
The
Rise of Leslie Vernon, and he's got to have a mask, and that's part of because he's trying to put the whole package together because he wants to be the best slasher killer, and part of that is coming up with this really great mask, and it's actually dumb as hell the mask that he wears, but it's fun. It's super awesome.
That one went over so well when we played that for
It's
Fright
the
Club
most
Live.
fun movie.
Yeah. I have to laugh though. Do you see Melissa Dina's comment? I'd buy that for $1. Nice. When I said it cost about $1
Nice.
for the William Shatner mask. Good job. And the other thing I love about the stories you read about making this movie, because every time we talk about American Psycho, and I think today, by the way, is the anniversary of it came out on this day.
Wow.
Yes. All those
Big day.
years ago. Yeah.
Yes.
We talk about how Mary Herron filmed Willem Dafoe 3 different ways, approaching the character with 3 different viewpoints. Well, toward the end there, that final scene where Donald Pleasance looks over the railing, they filmed it 2 ways. That one that he expected it, and one that he didn't, and he was surprised. And so they went with the one where it looked like he expected it. But I think that's a great directorial choice to make it. Just film it and see what works.
Yeah.
Now, in her case, I think Mary Herron's case, we've talked about, she just kind of split them up
she
all
did.
over the movie.
Yeah,
That's a whole different thing.
Yeah, she
And that
dealt
works.
it. Like, shuffled them, which was awesome.
Yeah, but I could see that though, because if you're not sure when you're filming, well, should he be surprised or should he expect it? Just wait and see how it flows.
Yeah.
When you get down to that point, and then you make the right choice, and I think they did. But Michael Myers, the Halloween mask, the Shatner mask, so iconic in horrific masks, and that is at number. Oh, that's right, only number 3 because the fuzzy mask.
That's
We
right.
started
I
with
also,
number
you know
6.
what? I want to toss one out too to Peaches, the mask in the Creep movies. That was super creepy, and that was he's so goofy in that movie, and then that mask when he puts that big hideous wolf mask on, which reminds me of the wolf mask you wear for Halloween every year, actually.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
That is
So
I should have brought that up. It's
my
buried in
God.
the basement,
It
but
is.
I've got this great, really gross Wolfman mask,
Yeah.
and it's so great to see the reactions of the kids at Halloween, because some will have nothing
Peach
to
fuzz.
do with our house whatsoever, and some will just walk right up and say, "Oh, that's fake." It's always fun.
Creep is awesome. Cicely says Creep is awesome. I just finally watched Creep 2 like last week because George and I were supposed to be watching something together, and then he just did something else the whole night. So I watched Creep 2.
I was putting together that cool video for work.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. That's what I was doing.
Not paying attention to me. That's what he was doing.
You know what I saw of Creep 2, and I admit I wasn't paying that much attention. I wasn't loving it.
It's because you weren't paying attention.
Okay, that's why.
So we're up to number 2.
Oh, and Brandon rightly commented about the Shatner mask. The beauty, the creepiness of it is in the simplicity.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, so right.
Yeah.
It's just lifeless and just.
It exactly matches the character.
Yes. Just the killing machine.
Yeah. There's just nothing in there. There's nothing going on under there.
Exactly right. And that is number 3, Horrific Masks, Michael Myers from Halloween. Moving up to number 2, another classic, having revived from his wounds, Jason Voorhees takes refuge at a cabin near Crystal Lake as a group of co-eds, arrive for their vacation. Jason continues his killing spree. From 1982, Friday the 13th, Part 3D.
That's right.
Jason, you can't fight him. You can't stop him. And now, you can't even keep him on the screen. Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D. Now, when it comes to killing in Jason's woods, Jason will come to you.
So I know nobody here thought that it was going to be the first one because the mask that people remember didn't get introduced until the third episode, which George has a great story about.
Oh, I remember. I saw this in the theater the first week that it came out, 1982, so I was junior in high school. And we all had to drive. We had to drive like about 24 miles the next town over that had a 3-screen theater. Woo-hoo! And they were playing it. And I had never seen a 3D movie. And we all had those wild glasses on, you know. And I remember just looking around at everybody in the theater before it started thinking, oh, everybody looks so stupid. And then realizing, so do you. But it was so great because right from the very beginning, they've just got, you know, some of the credits coming right at you. And then there's the scene where he shoots a harpoon, like a spear gun at somebody. That went right through the screen. And then, of course, the eyeball. He smashes the head and the eyeball goes straight through. Yeah, so we were quite giddy about seeing that. And that might have been, honestly, the last Friday the 13th movie that I saw in the theater. Because after that, I think the next one came out, I was in college and wasn't really going to see him anymore. But we had a hoot of a time.
A hoot of a time.
In small town Ohio with that Part 3.
So let's run through I'm getting some feedback on that it was in number 3. So number 1, of course, he doesn't wear a mask at all. Number 2, he wears the head bag, chock full of heady goodness. He doesn't wear the iconic hockey mask until the 3rd episode. And then, of course, he wears it in different variations through all of the rest of the episodes. But it's the hockey mask that became, you know, that's the iconic Jason mask.
Can I just say to Jeff, he cut me deep. I was 1 year old in 1982, he says. Man, that hurts. That hurts, Jeff. It hurts.
I didn't see it till I was an adult in this house. And I did it actually on one weekend. George was gone. And I decided I needed to watch all of the Friday the 13th in order, which was fascinating actually because I hadn't seen them sequentially because I wasn't old enough to watch the first ones when they come out. So I watched them in whatever order. And so I sat here one day and watched all of them from beginning to end. And what I noticed that I loved is that they make their way around the lake. They start at one camp, and then episode 2 is just the next camp over, and then episode 3 is really this farm that's just a little farther north on the lake, and then episode 4 is like where rich people rent houses around the lake for the weekend, and then it just keeps going around the lake until they take Manhattan, but they start off on the lake.
I was going to say, what part of the lake is Manhattan?
That's the thing, and then they take a ship from a lake to New York. I'm like, something not seaworthy is happening here. But anyway, the point is,
We've got to credit, for the hockey mask, we've got to credit the film's 3D effects supervisor, Martin J. Sadoff, because he was a huge hockey fan, and he had a lot of hockey gear with him when they were just trying possible
I call
masks.
shenanigans.
All right.
Because...
Did you hear a different story?
Well, I saw a different movie. So, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Martin Landau and why can't I think of his name? He does one-armed push-ups on the Oscars.
Jack
Palance, right? So it's this, and Donald Pleasance. Donald Pleasance runs a mental institution, and he uses electricity to keep people in. And then there's a storm, and the power goes out, and all of the loons leave, and they wander through town. And Jack Palance is one of them, and Martin Landau is one of them. And then there's another guy with them who doesn't ever talk. And before he kills everybody, what does he do? He puts on a hockey mask. Mm-hmm. That movie came out 2 years before Friday the 13th Part 3. So your guy is he's just lying.
You calling fake news?
Yeah, because 9 people saw that movie, and he stole that idea.
Stole it. Shame on you. I got to say to Monty brings up a good point. Most of this movie...
I doubt that. I'm sorry. I don't think that's right. I'm just kidding,
Ouch.
Monty. I'm just kidding.
Technically, much of this is on Saturday the 14th. Even Sunday... Seriously, even I think Sunday the 15th, we go into the whole weekend in this movie. So very little of it is on Friday the 13th. Is that not correct?
It is true. No, you are correct.
It's Monty. Monty is correct.
Yeah, because there can't be that many months in a row where there even is a Friday the 13th.
1982. Jeff was 1. And I was seeing in the theater Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th, Part 3.
Now, wait.
And another reason, how about this? I've got another piece of info for why they went with the hockey mask. Because 2 years earlier, the Elephant Man had come out.
Yeah.
And apparently the producers thought the bag on his head was a little too close to the Elephant Man and wanted to find sort of a different gimmick along with the 3D, because they also figured that our mode of operation here is basically the same every movie, so you got to have a new gimmick. So they went with the 3D and then wanted to get a different type of headgear as well.
Yeah, but I'm glad that you brought up episode 2 and the head bag, because we wanted to talk about that, because you didn't find a lot of other movies where somebody puts on a hockey mask, but there are about 1 million movies, really good ones. I mean, really scary episodes where the killer is just wearing some kind of a burlap sack over his head, which is awesome, beginning with, and Corey is going to be happy, The Town That Dreaded Sundown. That guy is creepy as fuck, and he's got a big burlap sack on his head. And then there are buttons sewn on. There was some craftsmanship that went into it, but Dr. Decker from Nightbreed, it's basically what he's wearing is a burlap sack. Thomas from The Orphanage.
Oh, yeah.
That's what he's got. Somebody sort of sewed and painted and drew on a sack for his head. Same with Sam for Trick or Treat. I don't know if that really counts as a mask. It might just be his head, but it's the same concept.
That's a tough call.
Right? It's like a burlap sack for a head.
Another tough call is it's not a mask, but the burlap sack in Audition. We can count that as a full body mask. Pretty freaky.
It is.
I like Sam from Trick or Treat.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. That's is it a mask or is it just his head?
I think it might just be his head. Well, there's a little guy in there. It's a little guy. So I guess
still worth a mention. Friday the 13th, Part 3.
That's right.
1982, a great mask. And that only leaves room for one at number 1. Another classic. Go way, way back. A mad, disfigured composer seeks love with a lovely young opera singer from 1925. The Phantom of the Opera.
So if you think about the 1925 mask, the actual mask, it's not that impressive. Later versions of the Phantom of the Opera mask, they got very cool. Like you got the half mask thing going on, but that was when it went to Broadway and it got all fancy pants. The first mask is not that very interesting, because what's interesting is what he looks like when they take the mask off. But the reason that it's number 1 is because it was 1925. So it was really the first time a film did that to freak you out. Put a mask on a guy and then showed you the creepy mask. Now, technically speaking, The Man Who Laughs was first, but it wasn't a mask. It was like a scarf just hung over the bottom half of his face. So, in a way, the Phantom of the Opera kind of ripped that off too. But it was the first one that was just a mask, and that was so so startling when you got to see his face when the mask. I mean, he looked creepy with the mask on, but once you saw his face,
oh yeah.
And that, I think, is really hard to do. We've talked about this before, where your imagination is going to fill in the blanks in a way that's better than what the makeup guy is going to be able to do, but not so here. I mean, Lon Chaney and the makeup guy, just that face is so alarming, especially when you think about it was 1925. So it's not like they were using a lot of anything, digital effects or anything to make that
right.
Make that face.
And they made sure to not publish any photos ahead of time. So that the audience would be duly shocked. And also, much like we talked about the reaction of Edward Woodward in The Equalizer, Mary Philbin's reaction. She had not seen the full.
And that's an iconic that reaction shot. That's among the best. That really is.
Yeah. Can you imagine if you had not seen it? And again, putting it in the proper context of being 1925 and what they were able to do, that could be really creepy. So I do not doubt that she was actually frightened. That's a great reaction shot.
Yeah, and I don't want to let the whole thing go without mentioning The Phantom of the Paradise. It's not a film that I love, but I like it, and that mask is awesome. And obviously, clearly, the entire thing is inspired by The Phantom of the Opera. But that is a cool, freaky mask.
Because of the fact that it is more the face that is terrifying. When you talk about the most iconic masks in horror, maybe this one might slip through the cracks just because of that. Yeah. Because it is not the actual mask, but it's the two together.
Yeah.
And when you do get that final look at him, it's such a build-up. And it still delivers now, really.
It does.
Because now you would think it'd probably be just a CGI thing, and it would be so much less effective.
Yeah.
But it's not, from 1925. And that is Phantom of the Opera, #1. And Corey wants to know if the face hugger counts as a mask.
Don't wear it as a mask. That's a cautionary tale.
That was one that's forced upon you.
That's right.
Although I've seen some that's a great Halloween mask. Anytime you can work that in, the face hugger is classic. Classic stuff. So that's fun. And you know what? Again, we thank you so much for hanging with us throughout the glitches.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to try this again with the Vimeo. We are, because trust me, when it works, it's going to be very, very cool.
Yeah.
It really is.
I got to use it. It's his Gateway's platform, and I got to use it last week with Chris Hamill, and we did the first of the conversations from the center, and it worked fine. So somehow, but it was what they said was that Vimeo's platform was down. So, that kind of thing is going to happen, and we will get a chance to do it.
We're getting some good questions. Katie says the mask in Happy Death Day. There's that baby mask.
That is a good creepy one, and I had intended actually to include it in the Mike Myers conversation about how not only did all the slashers have to have a mask, but then all the sort of retro slashers had to have one, which is clearly why they chose to do it. And actually, you were talking about it when we talked about time loops, how they came up with that mask. Like, they had several different options, and then the guy just put that one on and walked around and got such reactions from everybody. They're like, oh, it's clearly the fat baby.
Creepy baby. And then I think Derek says, what about the grease in Greasy Strangler? Does that count? Is that really a mask? It's just a lot of grease. I do love all the comments. I do love that you guys always come through. We appreciate that so much. So next time we're going to try it again on Vimeo. Just a little glitch, little ghost in the machine, as they say. But we'll work it out. And we thanks to Gateway, as always, for such great support. But we can't wait to see you all again in person. We really can't. I know a lot of people have been sharing. I forget who wrote it, but somebody just wrote an op-ed that's been going around about how much they miss movie theaters, and I think we all can agree on that. And
Motel Hell.
Motel Hell.
Yeah. I can't believe. So that clearly should have been tucked under the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. No question about it, since that's obviously the mask. And to be fair, Saw, they use a big pig head too, which is a Motel Hell reference.
Yeah, and the point is there are a lot of great masks in horror.
Yes.
And I'm sure there will be again. So thank you for the great conversation. What are we looking forward to next time?
We are going to, on Sunday, so it'll come out in about 2 weeks anyway, we are going to finally record the podcast on Troma that I know you're super excited about because you love Troma.
So I will just hang out here and you guys go in the studio and record.
That's right. So it's going to be Jen Dreadful and Phantom Dark Dave, and he's going to be really happy about number 1 because I know he loves Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
So we will talk with them about Troma next time, and that will just be a regular podcast. There will be nothing live about it.
Okay. But then the next time for Fright Club Live, we should be on Vimeo. Get it worked out. Do we know the topic yet, or is that up in the air?
It's still up in the air.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. So until then, keep the conversation going. Keep the comments coming. Remember, you can always join in the conversation on Twitter. That's the easiest way for us. You can find us on Twitter at Fright Club Pod. Also on Facebook and Instagram, it's Mad Wolf Columbus, and the main website where you can find out all of our written reviews and our other weekly podcast, The Screening Room, talking about all the new movies that come out. Well, right now, all the new streaming movies that come out. You can find that all at madwolf.com.
Yep.
So thank you guys again for checking in. It was a lot of fun. Love the comments. Love to see all the names. If we can't see your faces yet, love to see your names pop up on there. Jenny made it. Thank you so much. We love to see you off the side there of the screen if we can't see in person, and look forward to the day when we do. So until then, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast. Everybody out there, say it with us. Stay frightful, my friends.
Hello, darling. This is Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. And stay frightful, my friends.